Minnesota Senate Energy, Utilities, Environment, and Climate Committee will please come to order. It's Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, 12:30 p.m., give or take. We're here at the Minnesota Senate Building in room 1150. A quorum is present. Welcome, everybody. Today, one of our jobs is to listen to renewable development account proposals. If you have a copy of the agenda, you can see we have 4 on there. They are in no particular order. Had a brief conversation with the ranking minority member here, and I think we're set to go with that. I would ask Senator Putnam to come forward with Senate File 2017. Senator Putnam, welcome to the Energy Committee. I promise we'll be out of here by 3 in time for the Agriculture Committee. Senator Putnam, to your bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for listening to us today. We got a number of bills today, but obviously this is the most important one you're going to hear. And just so you know, I'm going to say that again 2 more times. This bill today, Senate File 2017, is about green ammonia. Minnesota is uniquely positioned for the tremendous opportunity and evolution at the intersection between agriculture, technology, and energy. We really do have a wonderful opportunity to be not just leaders in our country, but leaders in the world when it comes to these spaces between technology, the environment, and agriculture. We are on the brink of becoming essentially the Silicon Valley of agriculture. And that has tremendous opportunities for us as a state, economically and culturally. This bill speaks to that opportunity and to our moment. I can't talk science. I don't do it. So we've got 2 very, very brilliant people here to tell you a little bit more about the actual science itself. But my understanding is that hydrogen produced through carbon-free energy can decarbonize our energy grid and increase the resilience of the Minnesota power grid. Ammonia is a big part of this process. This bill appropriates $12 million in the next biennium from the renewable development account to the University of Minnesota to support the development of green ammonia. The resources will be used to speed this research and development of the commercialization of green ammonia. It will support prototype development, performance evaluation, emissions measurement, and pilot programs with real-world applications. We are a world leader in this technology. This investment will allow us to stay that way and provide real tangible benefits to the people of Minnesota. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to my testifiers who are way smarter than I could ever dream of being.
Thank you for that, Senator Putnam. I have Mr. Reese and Mr. Northrup. Which one of you would prefer going first? Mr. Reese, nice to see you again. If you could start, please, by introducing yourself and then presenting your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Mike Reese, Director of Operations and the Renewable Hydrogen Ammonia Research Lead at the University of Minnesota West Central Research and Outreach Center in Morris. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill as well as the committee. And thank you to Senator Putnam for carrying this along with Senator Westrom. We are a world leader in green ammonia research, due in large part to the support that the Minnesota Legislature has provided in past years. We had the first wind to hydrogen to ammonia pilot plant in the world back in 2013, and that set the stage for us to build upon that and into bigger, better things. You'll see in the picture of the first wind to ammonia pilot plant in the world on your screen right now, along with a tractor that runs on ammonia that Professor Northrup will be discussing here shortly. So ammonia is transformative from a standpoint of the hydrogen economy. It can be a carrier for hydrogen. If you look at the screen, you'll see in the center the molecule. The center is the nitrogen molecule, and around is the hydrogen. It actually is more hydrogen dense than hydrogen itself because hydrogen is the lightest element there is. And so what happens is that you're able to store and transport ammonia much cheaper than hydrogen itself. In fact, it's 100 times less costly to store and transport ammonia. So that's where it becomes a viable factor for use as a fuel for power generation, particularly on the renewable energy side. It has other applications. It is a nitrogen fertilizer. It can be used for transportation as well as for heating, but in this case, we're focusing primarily on dispatchable power generation. In addition to this work, we also are building a next generation pilot plant that'll be 18 times larger. It was funded through the U.S. Department of Energy and we have many partners from across the world participating in that, including Shell and GE Research, as well as companies here, including Xcel Energy. And I'd like also to point out that since Minnesota is, to some extent, the center of the world when it comes to green ammonia, we have guests from IHI Corporation from Japan here today, who have technologies that will enable use of green ammonia in turbines as well as other applications. In fact, they're partnering with GE on large-scale power generation turbines. So at the end of the day, though, it boils down to economics. And if we're moving to a renewable energy system, renewable power generation system, where we're going to use, have 100% of our power coming from wind and solar and other renewables, we need something else that actually can provide that dispatchable power. My colleagues, Dr. Matt Palis and Professor Prodromos Diatides have studied this extensively and have this award-winning paper that I'm showing you today, where they looked at 16 cities across the United States. From their results, they have shown that a combination of hydrogen and ammonia is the most cost-effective way to store wind and solar, especially compared to batteries. The reason why that is hydrogen is the lowest cost if you're using it in the short term, but ammonia is better for storing long term. And so, again, this paper was award-winning and nationally or internationally recognized for this work that comes out of the University of Minnesota. But if you look at batteries, you might say, well, how do batteries compare? They don't. They're much more costly. Batteries have a role, but it's definitely for short-term storage and not necessarily for the long-term storage that we need with wind and solar power. Another positive aspect about ammonia here in Minnesota is that we already have large-scale ammonia storage facilities located throughout our state. These hold 60,000 tons of ammonia and are equivalent to 111,000 megawatt hours of electricity. Each of them are. So if you look at where the transmission lines are located that come from the Dakotas into Minnesota, these are well situated to provide that backup and base load power or dispatchable power when needed. So again, I'll close with saying the green ammonia is something that the University of Minnesota is a world leader in. We have many people working in this, from policy to chemical engineering to mechanical engineering, and to the applied work that we do in Morris at the West Central Research and Outreach Center. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Professor Will Northrup.
Thank you for that, Mr. Reese. Professor Northrup, if you could start, please, by introducing yourself and then present your testimony.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity. My name is Will Northrup. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering at University of Minnesota, and I also direct the Thomas E. Murphy Engine Research Laboratory, which is a laboratory that focuses on the research and development and also demonstration of combustion technologies. So, yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the utilization side of green ammonia. My colleague, Mr. Reese, has outlined very clearly the need for green ammonia and its advantages. My work specifically is on the use of green ammonia. This essentially means that ammonia turns into a fuel. So what does that mean? Ammonia can be used as a fuel in multiple applications, as was referred to by Mr. Reese. Industrial heating is one application where ammonia might be used, and we've demonstrated a grain dryer and other technologies in my laboratory. Other applications include off-highway transportation like agriculture, marine, and mining applications. These are really advantageous applications for green ammonia because of ammonia's storage capability compared to hydrogen. But this particular request and bill is about green ammonia for use in power generation. So essentially, green ammonia can be burned directly or blended with other fuels. Our university laboratory is known as one of the most advanced and probably state-of-the-art laboratories for doing green ammonia research, and have a number of accomplishments which I'll get into. But essentially, we are looking at both reciprocating engines and gas turbine technologies. So this slide essentially shows that research and development is underway at University of Minnesota, supported largely by the state of Minnesota legislature. The advantages of green ammonia from a combustion standpoint are higher energy content compared to hydrogen, existing infrastructure, especially in rural areas. We have no particulate or carbon emissions of any sort because it's a molecule that does not contain carbon. Our accomplishments thus far have been to demonstrate low emissions diesel ammonia dual fuel engine, which was shown on Mr. Reese's slide with a tractor. We've also developed proprietary burner technology, which you can see here in the slide, as well as demonstrated a full range of reciprocating engine technology with 100% ammonia, which is really a kind of first of its kind technology. And you can see some examples of the engine that we have in the laboratory. Remaining challenges, we need more research and development to actually make this a commercial reality. We have things to do, like in terms of material compatibility and fuel handling, as well as handling unburned ammonia emissions and emissions of nitrogen oxides, including NOx and N2O, which are still challenges that remain. Thus far, we've done a number of demonstrations. My laboratory is unique at University of Minnesota because we don't just do science. We do science all the way up through demonstration. So we're doing fundamental work like that flame that I showed you, all the way up through things like tractors on the field, and that's my graduate student. You can see, Mr. Reese is driving the tractor. So it's a very well-integrated program. We work very well together. We put that tractor together as well as the grain dryer in 2022 that you can see. And our current projects are to convert a 200 kilowatt ammonia genset to 100% ammonia power and demonstrate that at the WC Rock, as well as small utility vehicles that we're also converting to 100% ammonia. In the future, what we'd really like to do is move up in power level. So we'd like to have it more impact and have it be more advantageous to the ratepayers by running green ammonia in actual power generation equipment like gas turbines or reciprocating engines like I've shown here. And lastly, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that due to our dominance in this area and our world-class status, we will be hosting a symposium, an ammonia energy symposium in September of 2025, where we hope to attract 400 people from all over the world interested in green ammonia, that we will be showcasing all of the work that the Minnesota Legislature has so graciously funded, and also demonstrate that we are really at the forefront of this technology. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. That ends the agenda of the listed testifiers. Members, it is the intention of the committee to lay over this bill and all the bills for possible inclusion, but we got a few minutes for questions from members. Senator Klein, did I see you indicate? Senator Klein.
Chair Frentz and Senator Putnam, and for the testifiers, you really caught my interest with this energy source, which is novel to me. We're familiar on this committee with sort of balancing the benefits and costs or harms of energy sources of every type. And you alluded to them in your presentation briefly. Can you just tell me a little bit more about fuel handling and storage and any risk that there is for combustibility or ignition? And then also, in your presentation, you talked about nitrogen oxides emissions. Educate me on that a little bit.
Thanks, Senator Klein. Great questions. Mr. Reese or Professor Northup, either one of you want to tackle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin, and we'll follow up with the technical aspect. But ammonia is the second most transported chemical in the world. We have significant handling expertise across Minnesota, since it's used as nitrogen fertilizer. So that's one thing unique about Minnesota and the Midwest compared to the rest of the world. In fact, the rest of the world is vigorously in pursuing ammonia as a fuel, and they can learn a lot from what we do here in Minnesota in terms of safety. There are safety concerns, but some of the risk assessments that's been performed on using ammonia versus other types of fuel, such as compressed natural gas and others, show that the risk is very close to the same. And I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thanks, Mr. Reese. Professor, anything to add to that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and then thank you, Senator Klein, for the question. The emissions question has been one that is kind of at the forefront of the ammonia research community. Being that ammonia is a molecule that has only nitrogen and hydrogen in it, of course, there's going to be nitrogen emissions when you are combusting at higher temperatures. However, the research that we've done in our laboratory and other research that has been done around the world has shown that nitrogen oxides, in particular what we call NOx, can be lowered to the same levels as what you would get from hydrocarbon combustion. So in fact, this is something that's, that we were demonstrating in our laboratory. Unburned ammonia emissions, however, are unique and can be controlled with after-treatment catalysts, which we're developing with partners right now.
Thanks for that, Professor. Senator Klein? Senator Klein's good. Everyone else good? Senator Putnam, do you want to wrap us up here? As you know, again, excuse me. Sorry, Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have put up my hand earlier, but I was hoping somebody, because Senator Klein did answer one of my questions or ask it. When you're talking about using this in private business, farms, whatever, what is the cost comparison to, say, even propane or diesel?
Professor, you want to tackle that, or maybe that's more Mr. Reese? Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it would compare very closely with diesel fuel. You know, the natural gas and propane are still less costly, but there are advantages, again, because it is not generating any CO2. And, you know, that's important from a market standpoint. I'll give you one example. The ethanol plants that are required to, if they're selling low carbon fuel into certain markets, they need to show that they can reach a certain level of CI, carbon index scoring. And in many cases, they're not able to do that. And so this would be an example where you could use green ammonia and meter it in just to the point that you need to get below that CI score requirement. So there are already economic reasons for using green ammonia versus using natural gas and propane. And those markets are growing because you know, Canada, Europe, and other areas, they want to drive that CI score down of that ethanol product.
Senator Green, allow me. Mr. Reese, any chance you could give us a little more context on the cost comparison? I know what you're saying, that propane, for example, would be less expensive. Are we talking 1/10 of 1% less, half? What, you give us, I think that's where Senator Green might have been headed.
Mr. Chair, if I might address Senator Green's question a little more specifically. My role, of course, is on the combustion side, so the utilization side. So we can come back to you with more specific numbers. But some analysis that we've recently done has shown that as green ammonia comes online, it will be probably 10% or more cheaper than propane currently is if it stays at the same price. But this, of course, depends on having green ammonia infrastructure. What I'd like to also point out that the production of green ammonia is something that can be done locally. So if we have stranded energy resources, including wind and possibly nuclear energy that we have online, we can convert that to hydrogen. Hydrogen is very bad for storage, so that ammonia actually becomes a much more enticing way to store hydrogen and use it in combustion facilities. So,
Thanks, Professor. 10%, back to you, Senator Green.
Then just one more question. How is it to convert these systems over? Is it costly? And is it a big process, or is it pretty simple?
Mr. Reese, Professor Northrop, conversion?
yeah. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to answer your question, Senator Green, this is essentially the thrust of the work that we're doing at my laboratory. We're finding that existing combustion powered equipment can be converted to green ammonia with relatively little investment. And I know you'd like probably some specific numbers, but essentially it's akin to converting an engine to propane operation. So we don't need any special technologies that we don't currently have available to us. And at scale, the cost should be comparable to existing engine technologies.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Professor, Mr. Reese, you want to?
Yes, just to add on to that, I think one of the intents of companies like IHI and GE is looking to the current fleet of large gas turbine power generators and seeing that they're getting to the point where they are in need of replacements. And so they are developing basically greenfield or new technologies, new turbine technologies, and building that specifically made for ammonia and other technologies. So there's an advantage to build them from scratch rather than conversion on these large-scale systems. And that just to demonstrate that this is moving forward, you have these companies like GE, Shell, IHI, and others across the world that are pursuing this. And they would not do that if they did not see a viable pathway towards having ammonia as a fuel source.
Thanks, Mr. Reese. Senator Green. You're good, Senator Green. I have Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, does this ammonia qualify for the federal green tax credit?
Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Gruenhagen. That's a good question right now. I think there's some uncertainty at the federal level, but it definitely does qualify within the IRA for the hydrogen protection tax credit under 45V. And so the way that would work is a power producer or wind producer or solar would also pair those generators with electrolyzers to produce hydrogen. And the hydrogen is what is eligible for that tax credit. And then the hydrogen could be there could be an offtake of the hydrogen to combine with nitrogen to form anhydrous ammonia. And so that's where the tax credit comes into play.
Thanks, Mr. Reese. Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that response. And my follow-up question was, and I guess it can't really be answered at this point, is the, based on your response, is if it has the qualifications for the federal tax credit, is it without the federal tax credit, would it still be competitive with other sources of ammonia? And I guess we won't know that for sure.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you, Senator. I think, Mr. Reese, you're saying we have some uncertainty.
Yeah, there's uncertainty there. Our technoeconomics within the University of Minnesota show that right now, green ammonia can be cost competitive with gray ammonia. And in 10 years, 2030, it can actually overtake gray ammonia. So when I talk about gray ammonia, I'm talking about ammonia that's produced using natural gas, which currently is the standard. So the projections are there that the technology in the market will improve to make this more competitive with existing ammonia. It doesn't necessarily get exactly to your question about whether the power generation, the cost of power generation would decrease without the tax credit, but it kind of gives you an indication that it is going down.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Senator Gruenhagen, you're good. Other members, good. Senator Putnam, again, we're going to lay this over. Do you have any closing comments for us to the proposal?
Basically, just thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for hearing the bill, and thank you, members, for the enlightening conversation. I sometimes think how lucky we are because we get to learn about some really cool stuff doing our job, but we also get to help make it happen. So thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Putnam. And just a quick plug for the Agriculture Committee. There's a little discussion of green ammonia, members, if you're curious, that you can find relating not just to cost, but where we think we're going. And with that, Senate File 2017 is laid over. Thank you very much, testifiers. Next up, Senator Eric Putnam, Senate File 1713.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for hearing this
Senator
bill. I know you're going to hear a lot of bills today, but this one's the most important.
Thanks, Senator Putnam. It's always good for the committee to know how you prioritize them as an author. To your bill, Senate File 1713, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As my friend Tracy prepares her presentation, I do want to take a moment just to brag about my community. Something that you may or may not know is that the City of St. Cloud water treatment plant is not just state leading. It's not just an example for the country. It is, in fact, internationally recognized. And what you're going to hear about today isn't just a cool new idea. It's world-leading cool new idea. because that's what is happening at the St. Cloud Water Treatment Facility. And so I think I've stalled long enough. Mr. Chair, this bill will appropriate some resources to the City of St. Cloud for a really important project. And I'd also like to acknowledge that this resource that we're asking for right now will be used in accord with other resources to pay for the entire project. In terms of explaining the project itself, way above my pay grade. So instead, Mr. Chair, if you're comfortable with that, I'd like to just stop talking and let my friend Tracy take over.
If you say so, Senator Putnam. Is it pronounced Hodel?
Hodel.
Hodel.
Yes.
Ms. Hodel, welcome to the Senate Energy Committee. Nice to see you again. If you could start, please, by introducing yourself and then presenting your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for your time today to hear this bill. My name is Tracy Hodel. I'm the Public Services Director for the City of St. Cloud. I'm here today to talk about a groundbreaking project that has the potential to position Minnesota at the forefront of global energy innovation, the St. Cloud Green Hydrogen Project. This project will be first of its kind in the world, which is a treatment facility that will be using all the end products electrolysis process. So we'll be using the hydrogen generated, the oxygen generated, and the waste heat to reduce energy costs at the facility. Currently, we've been working on this project for nearly 3 years now, and the electrolyzer is on order. It is expected to arrive at the facility this fall. And however, we have come across a roadblock and a challenge, which is grid capacity at this time. Currently, the City of St. Cloud has controls in place to prevent excess renewable energy to go back on the grid. However, our utility provider is no longer in a position to be able to extend these controls to meet our needs due to grid capacity concerns at this time. In response, we have identified a way to keep moving the project forward by adding a battery system to this project. We are requesting $3.5 million in RDA funds to help address this missing piece to keep us moving forward. If you happen to refer to the criteria outlined in the statute for the RDA fund, you will see that the funds are intended to stimulate research and development and implementation of innovative renewable energy projects that reduce demand, increase flexibility and efficiency, and encourage grid modernization through energy storage and load control. This project aligns perfectly with the criteria within the statute. This next slide, you want to take a look at, this is our actual facility. So this is an oversight of what we have going on, and all the upgrades are kind of highlighted in the green section on the screen up there. This facility is already a global leader, as Senator Putnam had mentioned, in resource recovery in both the nutrient and the energy recovery side. It is one of the few facilities in the country to have achieved net zero status since 2020. The facility integrates combined heat and power, transforming waste into energy, working with multiple manufacturers, food and beverage industries to bring high-strength waste to the facility to create energy, alongside solar, gas storage, nutrient recovery, and heat recovery. The success of all of our previous projects is a testament of St. Cloud's ability to make these innovative projects happen. Green hydrogen has a wide range of applications across industries such as manufacturing, transportation, heating, and power generation. This project will play a crucial role in decarbonizing several key sectors, create jobs in Minnesota, and provide significant benefits to utility ratepayers statewide. However, we need your support to continue to make progress. Without this funding, we'll be forced to potentially pause this project until grid capacity issues are resolved, or at best move forward, but only have the ability to provide a small amount of hydrogen. This would directly impact several key off-takers who have expressed strong interest in utilizing the hydrogen. This project isn't just about building a hydrogen facility, it's about reshaping the future of energy in Minnesota and demonstrating what is possible when we invest in solutions that are both environmentally and economically beneficial. We are excited about the potential of this project and the long-term positive impact this will have statewide. Thank you for considering this request.
Thank you, Ms. Hodel. Thanks, Senator Putnam. I do not believe we have any online testifiers. That's the end of our listed testifiers. Do we have any members of the public who want to testify to this bill that did not get a chance to report in to the committee administrator? Seeing none, are there member questions? Senator Klein.
Just a technical question maybe for council. The theme of the meeting today I know is appropriations from the renewable development account. This language is structured to be an appropriation from the general fund, not from the RDA. Is that something that's an error or something we're going to work on? Or?
Mr. Chair, I read it as coming from the RDA.
Yeah, Senator Klein, I think we're going in order on the agenda, so we're hearing Senate File 1713 right now, City of St. Cloud, but the general fund question is coming up, and I think that's appropriate to talk about. We have met with advocates who understand the nuance there. Anyway, good enough, Senator Klein, for this bill? Okay. Other member questions?
Okay. Thanks for doing that. Happy 11/11.
Tristan, is your microphone on online? Not anymore. All right. Seeing no further member questions, sorry, Senator Green.
Late to the table again. I'll do better next time. To the testifier, were you aware of the grid issues before you guys started moving forward with this and got as far as you did?
Thank you, Senator Green. Ms. Odell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Green, at that time, when we had if you look at the diagram right there, we actually have quite a bit of excess renewable energy generation already on site. And what we're doing as of 2020, we have controls in place. And so when we developed the project scope, our thought process was we'll continue with the controls approach. However, when we went through the interconnection agreement, things have changed since 2020. And so we didn't have the battery system as part of the original scope.
Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the battery system was part of the plan from, you're telling me, so why wasn't it incorporated into the cost of putting it all together?
Ms. Odell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Green, maybe I wasn't clear. I apologize. So this battery was not in the original scope because we had controls in place to manage the renewable energy export onto the grid. So it wasn't part of the original project.
Senator Green.
One more question then. What went wrong with the plan that the controls didn't work that you thought you had in place?
Ms. Odell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Green, we went through the interconnection process with our utility provider, and they had said that there was grid capacity concerns, so the controls aspect would no longer be a workable solution.
Senator Green, you're good? All right, thank you, Senator Green. Other member questions? Seeing none, Senator Putnam, as you know, our intention is to lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Any closing comments to Senate File 1713?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and members for the discussion. I will say that, sure, I care about this project because it's in my backyard, but I think all Minnesotans should care about it because it's an opportunity for innovation and a great opportunity for the entire state.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ms. Odell. And with that, Senate File 1713 is laid over. Next up, folks, we're going to have Senate File 1710. Senator Eric Putnam of St. Cloud presenting this bill. And we have some online testifiers, so let's do this, Senator Putnam. I understand you have an author's amendment. Why don't we put the author's amendment on there? From there, go to the in-person testifiers, and then we'll take the online testimony. So Senator Putnam, we do have an A2 amendment. Am I understanding you'd like to put that on first?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do you want to say anything to the A2 before we get the bill in the shape the author wants?
It's not especially long, so there's nothing in no particular detail I'd like to add to it.
All right. Senator Xiong offers the A2 amendment to Senate File 1710. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of adopting the A2, say aye. All opposed? The A2 is adopted. Senator Putnam, to your bill as amended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to introduce Senate File 1710 as amended, the Minnesota-made Ammonia Act. Chair, members, for too long we've heard from farmers in each of our districts about the soaring prices of fertilizer inputs, or the erratic price or volatility of fertilizer inputs, or both. The simple reality is that out-of-state ammonia fertilizer costs are too high and too uncertain. Necessity is the mother of invention, so scientists at the University of Minnesota Morris pioneered a method to produce ammonia fertilizer using wind, solar, hydro, and other renewable energy sources. A Minnesota-based nonprofit technology corporation, MRETS, has the expertise to expand the University of Minnesota's proven pilot program well beyond Morris and match every ton of ammonia production in renewable energy facilities that are located throughout the state and the region, enabling ammonia production to run nearly around the clock. Senate File 1710 is a prudent and one-time appropriation to MRETS for the development of the software system that will roll out the red carpet to distributed ammonia companies building facilities in Minnesota. MRETS technology will provide an auditable record for every ton of ammonia produced with renewable energy. These records, called ammonia certificates, are a new and valuable commodity for Minnesota farmers and farm businesses to sell to a robust and domestic international market. The ultimate function of this technology is it helps us count what we're already doing. And if we can't count it, maybe we didn't do it. So, for example, sustainable aviation fuel is one specific example of buyers interested in securing certificates for corn and other agricultural feedstocks grown with locally produced ammonia. And I'm sure, members, that you are all very well aware of the incredible economic potential of sustainable aviation fuel. And while ammonia's primary use may be agriculture, it also has applications in iron mining and as a maritime shipping fuel. With local and regional electricity as the primary ingredient fuel for locally produced ammonia fertilizer, farmers will gain certainty and control over costs. So, Chair, members, I encourage your support for Senate File 1710.
Thank you, Senator Putnam. Members, we have a list of about 6 testifiers. We're going to go first to Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, if you could introduce yourself, please, and give your testimony. We're looking for about 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Great to be here, and thank you so much, Senator Putnam, for carrying this bill. My name is Rob Davis. I serve as Chief Growth Officer for Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking System, or MRETS, governed by a board of directors, including utility executives, regulators, and electric and RNG industry experts. We were founded in 2007 as a not-for-profit entity to serve one specific purpose: verifying and tracking clean and renewable energy. With direct visibility to the production meters of thousands of generators throughout MISO, the regional grid, whether wind, hydro, RNG, solar, nuclear, we provide the auditable record backing up public claims. MRETS supports Senator Putnam's bill, SF 1710, appropriating funds that we will use to hire software engineers, business analysts, and others to create a registry for ammonia produced locally with electricity. This registry of ammonia certificates produced by local distributed ammonia facilities will act in a similar fashion to MRET's existing registry for renewable energy certificates, or RECs. A recent report in the international journal Nature stated, "Decentralized ammonia production is particularly promising in regions heavily reliant on imports distant from production facilities where high-risk profiles make large-scale projects difficult. Areas with high transportation costs or high distribution costs, such as, and you'll appreciate this, sub-Saharan Africa or regions like Minnesota in the United States, where long-distance transportation inflates fertilizer costs, are prime candidates for decentralized production." Mr. Chair, members, you know ammonia prices are high when Minnesota is getting compared to sub-Saharan Africa. Last summer, energy think tank RMI published a report titled Roadmap for Distributed Energy Ammonia in Minnesota. To my surprise, the report mentioned MRETS in its policy recommendations section. The report further stated that Minnesota is a prime candidate for initiating the inaugural wave of distributed ammonia projects, and Minnesota stands poised to spearhead the advancement of distributed ammonia projects, heralding a paradigm shift in the Midwest and potentially in other regions of the United States. Members, you're here today from agriculture, energy, and economic development testifiers, all speaking in support of Senate File 1710. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next, we have Rachel Stuckey from Minnesota Conservative Energy Forum. Ms. Stuckey, are you here? There we go. Ms. Stuckey, welcome back to the committee. It's nice to see you again. If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony. We're looking at 2.5, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Friends and committee members, Thank you for the opportunity to testify today and to Senator Putnam for bringing this bill forward. My name is Rachel Stuckey, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Conservative Energy Forum, and we support a market-based, all-of-the-above energy strategy for Minnesota. Minnesota is uniquely positioned to become a national leader in the emerging green ammonia and hydrogen economy, as we already possess the necessary infrastructure, resources, and expertise to move forward decisively. By building upon the current MRETS tracking platform, we can establish a framework that encourages private sector investment while ensuring market transparency. This approach recognizes a fundamental economic principle. Markets function at their best when all participants have access to trustworthy information about their transactions. Adding ammonia and hydrogen tracking will create substantial economic benefits throughout Minnesota by reducing our dependence on imported products and incentivizing new markets. This investment will attract significantly greater private capital, generating returns statewide, and Senator Putnam's amendment guarantees Minnesota businesses and farmers a competitive edge in this emerging market. By building crucial bridges between our energy infrastructure, industrial operations, and agricultural sectors, this approach strengthens Minnesota's entire energy ecosystem. We stand at a rare moment where a targeted investment can position our state as a national leader, attracting private investment, creating jobs, and building the foundation for decades of economic growth. We encourage you to support this forward-thinking investment in Minnesota's economic future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stuckey. Next, we have George Damian from SEAM. And Mr. Damian, I see, is here. Mr. Damian, welcome back to the committee. If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Thank you, Chair, friends, committee members. My name is George Damian. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Clean Energy Economy Minnesota. SEAM is an industry-led, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that represents the business voice of clean energy in Minnesota. Our 70-plus business member companies employ tens of thousands of Minnesotans are leading the charge to decarbonize our state's economy. We are here today in strong support of Senate File 1710, Senator Putnam's bill to enable the tracking of ammonia, hydrogen, and renewable energy credits through MRETS. This is a key investment in unlocking the potential of clean ammonia for Minnesota's agricultural and steel industries. Minnesota farmers are facing high and unpredictable costs for ammonia fertilizer, which is a critical input for their operations. Each year, Minnesota farmers send between $500 million and $1 billion out of state to purchase ammonia fertilizer. This issue impacts nearly every community across our state. The cost fluctuations stem from two primary factors: the volatile price of fuel sources used to produce ammonia and high transportation costs. Minnesota already has a solution. The University of Minnesota Morris has pioneered a method to produce ammonia fertilizer using wind, solar, and other renewable energy sources. By leveraging this innovation, Minnesota-based nonprofit MRETS is well positioned to scale the proven model. MRETS can certify each ton of ammonia produced with renewable energy, ensuring transparency and creating a new verifiable commodity for Minnesota's farmers. This means farmers will have greater cost stability and control by using locally produced clean electricity as the primary input for ammonia. The benefits of local clean ammonia production extend beyond agriculture. Minnesota currently supplies 85% of the iron used in steel manufacturing. As the steel industry transitions from traditional blast furnace to electric arc furnaces and direct reduced iron DRI pellets, clean ammonia is emerging as a critical input. DRI production requires ammonia produced with clean energy sources such as wind, solar, nuclear, and hydro. Investing in this infrastructure now ensures that Minnesota remains competitive in the future of green steel manufacturing while also driving economic growth and job creation across our state. Supporting Senate File 1710 means lower and more predictable ammonia fertilizer costs for farmers, reduce reliance on out-of-state ammonia production, strengthen Minnesota's leadership in clean energy innovation, positioning Minnesota's iron and steel industry for long-term success, and creating high-quality clean energy jobs and new economic opportunities for communities that need them the most. Minnesota has expertise, resources, and industry leadership to be the forefront of green ammonia and green steel. By investing in this opportunity today, we can make a major step towards a cleaner, more resilient economy. We need your support for Senate File 1710. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Damian. I believe we have 3 online testifiers, and the first on my list is Tristan Peets, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mr. Peets, are you online?
Hi, I'm Roger Freeman. I'm Tristan's colleague, and he's in between airports, got trapped in Dallas yesterday at a SPP Energy Synergy Conference. And so I'll be speaking on behalf of Talis, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate that, Mr. Freeman. If you don't mind reintroducing yourself and your affiliation, we're looking for 2.5 minutes of testimony, and fire away.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I thank you for the opportunity to offer testimony this afternoon in support of Minnesota-made Ammonia Act SF 1710. and ad hoc for the other measures that have been discussed today. I appreciate the work that you're doing. My name is Roger Freeman. I serve as head of power for Thales Ag. We're a clean ammonia infrastructure company. Thales is deploying the first network of distributed modular clean ammonia production systems in the country. The systems will provide local production of essential ammonia fertilizer for farmers in Minnesota and across the Corn Belt, and chemicals for other important uses at or near the point of use. Unlike most ammonia that is made by cracking natural gas, Thales Ag uses electricity, air, and water to create ammonia via hydrogen electrolysis and the Haber-Bosch process. The only emissions from our production system is oxygen and ammonia. When we use renewable electricity to power our electrolyzers, the Thales systems have zero associated direct or indirect carbon emissions. And our decentralized approach benefits farmers by providing lower cost, locally produced fertilizers that are not subject to transportation and import supply risks. Thales was originally conceived to bring needed fertilizer to sub-Saharan Africa, and our systems were natively designed and engineered to operate off the grid on distributed energy from solar and wind, and importantly, to follow that intermittent generation, ramping up and down rapidly as necessary for efficient operations. With the introduction of the Section 45V tax credits for clean hydrogen, Thales upsized our systems for the U.S. market, and we're the first company with commercial systems deployed. We have 1 ton per day systems operating today in Kenya and also Boone, Iowa. And our first Thales 10, which is a 10 ton per day system, is under construction in Eagle Grove, Iowa. We're currently developing a portfolio of these systems across the Corn Belt, and in fact, actively working on early stage developments in Minnesota. We have potential sites in Marshall, St. James, and Detroit Lakes that we're exploring. And while these are early stage, we're working with local utilities, landowners, and cooperatives to bring these projects to fruition. And we look forward to inviting some of the committee members to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremonies if and when we can bring them online. Acknowledging our philanthropic roots and the vision of our founder and CEO, Hiro Iwanaga, Thales is a social benefit corporation, and that means our mission is to create value for all of our stakeholders, including our farmer customers. By reducing energy costs or increasing project revenues, we can pass along the benefits to our customers and offer ammonia fertilizer at costs that are competitive or below the long-term price of gray ammonia, as you may have heard. As of today, the market for ammonia does not really recognize a premium for low carbon products, but there are market participants, including large consumer food companies and others, for example, the SAF that you heard a little bit about, that want to secure low carbon corn and a way to evidence that. And just like we evidence our use of renewable energy with RECs, to develop an efficient market for clean ammonia, we really need the development of a transparent and credible market for tracking and verifying clean ammonia attributes. And MRETS is a leader in the nation in establishing these tracking and verification protocols for low carbon commodities such as electricity. And we fully support their efforts to bring their expertise to the development of clean ammonia tracking systems for Minnesota and really the rest of the nation. So accordingly, we offer our support for the proposed legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Next, we'll go to Mr. Luca Zullo, I think online. Mr. Zullo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for joining us. If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony, hoping for 2.5 minutes, give or take.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and Senator Putnam. My name is Luca Zullo, and I'm Senior Director of Science Technology at the URI, the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute. And today, I would like to emphasize in our support for this bill, the potential role of distributed green ammonia production in Minnesota. This is a strategy that intertwines environmental sustainability with rural resilience and economic development. We have heard about the pioneering work of the University of Minnesota, which already puts the state in a global leadership position in this area. I would also add that we are committed in supporting the continuous improvement in our agricultural sector, economic and environmental sustainability, which allow us to advance value-added market opportunities. And the synthetic fertilizer supply chain is essential to that. And new pathways for ammonia production can further bolster agricultural markets. Distributed green ammonia production offers many advantages. By embracing it, the states can significantly reduce the agricultural carbon footprint and qualify for value-added production incentives, for instance, as we discussed earlier, in sustainable aviation fuel. Also open up new markets. It will also enhance the resilience of rural community to decentralize production of this crucial agricultural input, none of which, as we have heard, is produced today in Minnesota. Locating green ammonia facility close to local resources and markets can stimulate economic growth, create jobs, build local capacity, and utilize agricultural co-product to create additional fertilizer products for our producers. We believe this model will further empower farmers, local businesses, and communities by reducing economical vulnerability and providing a steady income that benefits local development. As a state, Minnesota has a proven model to follow. Its national leadership in developing the ethanol and biodiesel sectors has been essential to the vitality of our rural communities. So in conclusion, we support this bill because distributed green ammonia production can bolster the robustness and resilience of our agricultural sector and the many businesses depend on it. It will ensure that Minnesota remains at the forefront of modern agricultural technology and rural economic development. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Mr. Zullo. Last, we'll go to Eric Hattelstad. Mr. Hattelstad, are you there online? Mr. Hattelstad, I show you online. Can you hear us? All right, members, here's what let's do. If Mr. Hattelstad comes back, we'll take that testimony, but if there are member questions, let's do those now so we're not stagnant. Thank you for the presentation. Members' questions? Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Putnam, for the bill. Mr. Davis, you've come and spoken to me about this bill. You asked for my support on it. I did give it a lot of thought. I was not able to get to the point of being able to support it or sign my name onto it. We had some good conversations on what your goals and intents are with this. I want to clarify some things here on the record, however. First of all, part of it's not necessarily your organization's fault. I just have significant doubts with the whole renewable energy credit system altogether, because it feels like a monopoly money system that we're going to assign value to with renewable energy and just make people buy them if they're not reaching the standard. So I've got some issues with just the whole model to begin with. I've also not sold on whether or not a nonprofit model is the best way to accomplish such a tracking system either. But I want to ask you, either Senator Putnam or Mr. Davis, how many states are you planning to be operating in or reaching? I believe from our prior discussions, you're not limited to the state of Minnesota. I believe you're a more regional model. So how big is that region going to be? How many states are you going to operate in with your Emirates tracking system?
Thanks, Senator Matthews. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Matthews. Fantastic question. So we have one set of flat fees that we assign and make available and publish on our website. And we would do that again with a ammonia registry as well. The author's amendment that is added on the bill indicates that there is a way for, and a direction for us to specifically credit and create an advantage for Minnesota businesses by basically recrediting their costs for generation, transfer, and issuance of ammonia certificates. So we heard your feedback very clearly and directly, and that's why we came up with this novel mechanism to ensure that it wasn't entirely Minnesota organizations that were footing the bill for this, that we would develop a mechanism to recoup those costs and ensure that Minnesota can lead in this way, and Minnesota farmers and rural communities can have a leg up and benefit the most.
Mr. Davis, I don't mind jumping in to say how many states outside of Minnesota is it?
Absolutely. That would be, we would make it available to all the communities where we serve, so nationwide.
All right, thank you. 50 states. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe if we could have discussion on the A2 amendment then and describe that for me. Sounds like you're trying to limit it or advantage our Minnesota business owners. And if you could maybe walk me through that paragraph and how that's going to look, that would be helpful.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Matthews, for the question. So the author's amendment states that Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking System shall credit Minnesota businesses up to the equivalent amount of the grant total for fees to generate, transfer, and retire green ammonia certificates through the end of through January 1 of 2035. A single business may not receive more than $500,000 in credits. So on their invoice, we would charge them the fee and then credit back exactly the amount up to $500,000 per entity for qualifying qualifying businesses. That would be Minnesota businesses.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then why the switch in the amendment from general fund to RDA, which we tend to have limited toward the Excel territories? This sounds like it would be statewide in Minnesota. Why the switch on that part in the amendment?
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Matthews. In dialogue with Senator Putnam, the suggestion of the RDA, we felt like that was the more likely and viable path. We are frankly open and are flexible with regards to wherever the resource comes from. So happy to make a change there if you feel that there is more resources available in the general fund. The direction we got from a number of stakeholder conversations was that the RDA would be a better fit for this. Excel does carry the majority of the load for the state. That said, respect your statement with regards to the positioning of those funds.
Senator Matthews. By the way, we do have the other testifier available. So let's have Senator Matthews finish his questions, then we'll go to the testifier, then we'll come back for any other member questions. Senator Matthews.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Are any credits going to be going to farmers or entities outside the state of Minnesota from these RDA funds, or are all the credits just going to Minnesota entities?
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Chair, Senator Matthews, as it states in the author's amendment, we would be offering credits directly and only to Minnesota entities. So that is our intent with this language.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One final one that maybe Senator Putnam or Commerce is more amenable to. Why does Commerce need to reserve $10,000 in the bill? Why can't they just absorb it?
Senator Putnam, you want to try that one, or is that for Mr. Davis?
Mr. Chair, Senator Matthews, we structured it this way. We know that this is a one-time appropriation, and frankly, there's not a lot of work to do. So we felt that it was the best approach would be to signal a cap on that language and just direct it at a maximum of $10,000.
Senator Matthews.
Closing comment, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. We're going to get a better picture of what our financial situation is tomorrow, and we're likely going to have to really tighten our belts and be very, very careful this go around. If it were up to me, I would just have Commerce absorb it and work within the existing infrastructure in there. So with that, I appreciate the discussion on these. Gives me a better understanding of the bill. I know we're laying it over, not in a position yet for supporting it. Appreciate the discussion we've had about it.
Thank you, Senator Matthews. And you have a continued pledge that we're going to talk about the costs associated with the agency grant administration, not limited to this bill. We have Eric Hattelstadt available to testify. Mr. Hattelstadt, am I right that you can hear us now and can testify?
Yes, indeed. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony. We're looking for about 2.5 minutes.
I will be brief. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Hattelstead, and I'm the 5th generation on the Hattelstead family farm in northern Candy-Ojai County, where we operate an 850-acre grain farm. If our family has learned anything about agriculture over the last 5 generations, it's that nothing is ever easy in agriculture. And as we face challenging times ahead for the farm economy, that lesson is more relevant than ever before. With rising input costs and a questionable future for ag markets, Minnesota's farm communities will need new opportunities to reduce costs, create jobs, and build community wealth. Local distributed generation of green ammonia offers a major opportunity for farmers and farm cooperatives to own green ammonia facilities in their own communities rather than importing it from Europe. I support SF 1840 as a component of developing the farmer-owned green ammonia economy in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hattelstedt. Thanks for your patience also. That's the end of our listed testifiers. We're going to go back now to member questions. Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as we look at what you're proposing here, and you're saying you're going to create this certificate to help them, this ammonia producer, show they use clean energy. Like when we look at RECs, a utility is purchasing this REC from another group so that they get credit for it. Under what authority do you have to actually claim that a certain amount of energy being produced by wind or solar is going to this entity? I mean, is that being purchased in some way to make sure that it's credited to them, or how does that process work?
Thanks, Senator Rarick. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Rarick, for your question. The idea of a registry is to ensure there is no double counting. You might be familiar with the term registry from a wedding registry or a baby shower registry, where folks are ensuring that they don't buy two examples of the same Instapot or the same gift. Similarly, clean energy registries are ensuring there is no double counting. So we have a unique identifier associated with every single one of the certificates that we issue. And so having visibility to the production meters for all of those generators throughout MISO, throughout SPP, every time one of those generators, whether it's a nuclear facility or a wind or solar project, generate 1 megawatt hour of electricity, we issue 1 renewable energy certificate and we put it in their account. We charge them 1 penny for that work. Then at the end of a year, they have an obligation, or they want to make a public claim. They can certainly transact on that certificate over the course of that time, and you have seen a significant rise in what's called the voluntary market for renewable energy certificates. There are a number of products in the grocery stores today that proudly state on their box, that produced with X% of wind energy, solar energy, renewable energy. Those voluntary buyers are going into a registry like MRETS to ensure that no one else is making a claim against that amount of renewable generation. And so we don't dictate the price. We simply handle the registry and monitor the issuance, the transfer, and then the retirement. So when a REC is transacted upon and sold to another entity, they take the rights to be able to retire that certificate. In this case, it is important for these ammonia facilities to be able to demonstrate that every ton of ammonia is produced using renewable energy. And so the producers like Talus Ag, they want to be able to say, for X amount of tons of ammonia, that was produced using renewable energy. And our system is able to ensure that that matching happens.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So kind of a follow-up on that, and trying to get closer to what I'm asking about is, we have a lot of different groups, whether it's community, solar gardens, or other folks who are investing in it. I'm trying to understand, how do you get to determine who gets credit and can claim use of that particular energy that was produced by wind or solar?
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Rarick, for the question. We have a series of legal documents and a legal process that we go through when an organization registers with our software, and then when they register, take the next step to register a generator. So it might be the owner of that generator, or it might be a contractual entity that has the rights, the contractual rights to the RECs from that generator. So they register an entity within our system, and then they register a series of generators within that system. Then we monitor the production meters and assign issue the RECs, and then they transact on the RECs, and then ultimately end up retiring the RECs. So there's an extensive legal process that goes on for us to verify the legal owner of that generator before we issue RECs to them.
Thanks, Mr. Davis. Senator Rarick. Okay. Other member questions? Senator McEwen.
Thank you for the presentation of the bill today. I had a question about, and I apologize if I missed this because I'm trying to get caught up on what this is and what it means while we're getting information from the testifiers as well. So I apologize if this was already said. Maybe it can just be reconfirmed for me. I'm wondering, how do you define what is green hydrogen or green production for the purposes of the work that you're doing? As I understand it, some of what is being called green is somewhat problematic because we don't have a good definition here in the state of Minnesota of what constitutes the green, so-called green. And there's some concern about greenwashing. Just because this is being produced with renewable energy, that can be somewhat problematic if what we're actually doing is using up renewable energy from the grid as it is and then placing a higher demand on fossil fuel energy generation. So I'm wondering if you can talk to that.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question, Senator McEwen. So I was just reviewing my testimony, and I don't see the word green anywhere in it. I think the only thing green about me today is my tie. That said, there's a number of academics that have published documents about specific rules related to the 45V tax credits. These are the tax credits that were not included in the reconciliation package that U.S. Speaker Johnson addressed last week or earlier this week. It's hard to know these days, so we are really focused on exactly what is in federal statute and other statutes with regards to meeting certain standards. So we don't have a position on what is green or what is clean. To the state of Minnesota, we look at what's in the law, and then we develop a tracking system that meets those standards. Thank you.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So if there is no definition about what constitutes a renewable that would meet the definition in Minnesota, and as I understand it, just previous to the current administration federally, there was a decision by the prior administration to create a sort of three-pillar analysis of what would make something green in this sector. But we don't, I strongly suspect that that may not be the case any longer, or might not go forward in the way that it had. I just wonder, so you're just going to be following whatever the federal parameters are and then what we have here in the state of Minnesota, and that's what you do. Am I understanding that right?
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator McEwen. The 45V tax credit rules were finalized in early January, and those preserved the so-called three pillars. And so we would be following the three pillars to ensure that for every ton of ammonia produced, that it follows those protocols. So yeah, that's what creates the additional value. That's what merits the additional tax credit. And I believe that, to use the terminology, that's what determines whether it's green or not. So thanks for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you, Senator McEwen. Members, we're good. Again, the intention to lay it over. Senator Matthews, one more question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One more question. Mr. Davis, what is Emirates going to be underneath the authority of a state agency? Are you going to be operating autonomously? What's the line of authority that you're going to operate under with this proposed model?
Mr. Davis, briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Matthews, for the question. So we are governed by a board comprising of regulators, of utility executives, of industry experts, and so we would be operating in the public interest according to our 501c4 status to ensure that we are maximizing public benefit and working to fulfill our mission. We publish our 990s, and so all of our financials are there through that system, and have a number of board meetings every year. So it's the same way we've been operating for the last almost 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I think what I hear is transparent but not supervised by an agency. Is that where you were headed, Senator Matthews? All right, you're good for now? All right, members, with that, we're going to let Senator Putnam have the last couple words if he would like. Senator Putnam?
Very quickly, just thank you for the time, attention, and discussion.
Well done, Senator. With that, Senate File 1710 is laid over. We'll go to the final bill on the agenda now, members. That is Senate File 1787. Vice Chair Xiong. Senator Xiong, good to see you. I understand that for Senate File 1787, you have an A1 amendment, but then also an oral amendment that you've talked with council. Are you comfortable putting the amendments on first and then beginning your presentation? All right, Senator Xiong to the A1.
Thank you, Chair. Would like to move the A1 amendment, which is page 1, line 10. After improvements, we'd like to insert roofing, insulation, and other improvements to meet building performance standards. And I think that some of the testifiers can talk a little bit more about that piece of it, but I would also like to make an oral amendment.
Senator Xiong, why don't we do this? Let's allow you to get the bill in the shape you want, put the A1 on, then go to the oral amendment, if that's good with members. Members, any questions for Senator Xiong on the A1 amendment? With that, Senator Xiong offers the A1 amendment. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, the A1 is adopted. Senator Xiong, now I understand there's an oral amendment that you want to bring to the bill as amended. To your oral amendment, Senator Xiong.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair and committee members, I would like to make an oral amendment, page 2, line 13. Would like to insert as for the RDA and the general fund portions, as you can see, it is blank there, but we would like to insert $10 million for each of the sections there. And that would be my oral amendment. I don't know if council could help out with that piece.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. I have talked with Ms. Severson, and so what we'll do, members, is we'll have Ms. Severson walk through the oral amendment. Any member questions, we'll take them, then we'll adopt. Ms. Severson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Senator Xiong moves to amend Senate File 1787 as amended as follows. Page 2, line 9, delete the blank and insert 10 million. And on line 13, delete the blank and insert 10 million.
Thank you, Ms. Severson. Members, are there any questions for Senator Xiong or council to the oral amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the oral amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The oral amendment is adopted. Senator Xiong, thank you for your patience. To the bill as amended.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. The bill before you would provide funding for MNCFA, or the Minnesota Green Bank, to establish a revolving loan fund for schools across Minnesota. This fund would use limited public resources to leverage greater private investment, ensure maximum impact and efficiency. The goal is to create a substantial self-sustaining loan fund that will recycle public dollars while encouraging private sector participation. The schools will be able to access MNCFA funding to install new HVAC systems and or geothermal systems to heat and cool their buildings. This investment improves school infrastructure, energy efficiency, and creates healthier learning environments for students and staff. As of 2023, more than half of the schools in my district do not have air conditioning, and I know many of you have similar challenges in your districts. Retrofitting older buildings with air conditioning can come with multi-million-dollar price tags, a cost that typically falls on local taxpayers. The bill provides a smart, sustainable financing solution to help schools modernize their buildings without overburdening local communities. Before I turn this over to our testifiers, I want to highlight the letter of support signed by various stakeholders who backed this legislation. I also have an amendment, with that, this bill is a win-win for schools, taxpayers, and the environment. And I would like to turn it over to the first testifier, Justin Kilman from Education Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Members, you should have the recommendation letter in your packet. And with that, we'll go to the testifiers. Mr. Killian. Mr. Killian, welcome to the committee. If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony. We're hoping for about 2.5 minutes, if that's all right.
It's all right with me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator. My name is Dr. Justin Killian, and I'm here on behalf of Education Minnesota, the largest labor union in the state that represents over 86,000 both licensed and unlicensed educators. It's my first time here in Energy, and it's a little bit like a fish out of water, but I am excited to be here because we enthusiastically support this bill. This is something that Education Minnesota has been working on since 2019. In fact, we released a report on it talking about HVAC quality and the temperatures inside our classrooms. Some of the things that we really love about this bill is that it prioritizes Title I schools and schools in greater Minnesota. These are the schools that are often have the least financial resources, and they have the least ability to raise those financial resources. And in the terms of both categories of schools, these seem to be the schools the federal government is looking to potentially yank money from. And so it's going to become even harder for them to make these changes. The other things that we would like to point out is I don't think any of you would like to come to this building and work on a 95-degree day if the HVAC system wasn't working. I certainly don't think you'd like to go over to the older building where both chambers are and work in that building if it wasn't air conditioning. Yet we send our kids and our educators to unair-conditioned buildings all day, every day. And I have had the pleasure of helping my members move out of their classrooms at the end of the school year in June, and it is very hot. So I don't know how we expect children to learn in those environments. There are a lot of things to praise about this bill, but I just wanted to read a tweet that one of my members in St. Paul recently put on Twitter or X. We did it. We topped 100 degrees in my classroom. I'm not sweating anymore. I'm lightheaded. I have a headache. All the classic signs of heat exhaustion. Imagine what my pregnant and nursing colleagues are going through, and of course my students who are observing Ramadan. This bill is a tremendous move forward for equity. We also have plenty of social science research that correlates academic performance and teacher retention with air quality and temperature in schools. And I'm not making that up and happy to share it with this committee at any time. So this will do a lot to close achievement gaps. This will do a lot with the teacher retention problem we have in this state. And it's the right thing to do because our children and our teachers deserve to go to school and breathe clean, quality air that's an appropriate temperature. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Killian. With that, members, we have the next testifier, which is Lucas Franco, I believe online. Mr. Franco, are you there?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear, Mr. Franco. Thank you for coming today. If you could introduce yourself and give your testimony, please.
Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, Chair Frentz and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lucas Franco. I'm here on behalf of Leuna, Minnesota, and North Dakota. We represent about 14,000 skilled construction workers who build and maintain our state's critical energy infrastructure. I'm here today to express strong support for Senate File 1787. This legislation is an important investment in Minnesota's schools, students, and workforce. It'll improve our educational infrastructure while supporting advancements in the emerging geothermal energy economy. In particular, I'd like to highlight 3 benefits of this legislation. First, as we just heard, the new upgrades will improve ventilation, helping to reduce airborne illnesses. leading to better student performance, fewer sick days for students and staff. Our state's public schools are long overdue for infrastructure upgrades that improve indoor air quality, increase energy efficiency, and create healthier learning environments. And this legislation is a step in the right direction. Second, this legislation will save school districts money on their energy costs. In 2022, the steam fitters, pipe fitters local 455 installed a cutting-edge geothermal system at their apprenticeship training center in St. Paul, and they achieved an 85% reduction in cooling costs. And I would greatly encourage members of this committee to tour that facility at some point. It is quite impressive what they have developed. It's one of the most innovative geothermal systems in Minnesota, and it's certainly a model of what is possible. And third, this legislation will also support the development of a skilled clean energy workforce. Our members have powered Minnesota, building and maintaining the state's traditional energy infrastructure, from power plants to pipelines, transmission lines, and utility projects. They take pride in the work, and we know that energy jobs are good, family-sustaining careers that provide long-term opportunities. As the energy landscape evolves, LEUNA members are ready and eager to assist in building the next generation of clean energy infrastructure, including geothermal systems. This bill expands opportunities and career pathways while ensuring that Minnesota schools benefit from cutting-edge sustainable energy solutions. So in conclusion, Senate File 1787 is a smart policy that strengthens our schools, supports our workforce, and makes Minnesota a leader in sustainable infrastructure. LEUNA members are ready to work, bringing their expertise in emerging renewable energy sector careers while continuing to build and maintain essential infrastructure in Minnesota. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Franco. Our next testifier, I think, is here, Dan King from Darcy Solutions. Mr. King, if you could come forward, please. Good afternoon. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and give your testimony. We're hoping for about 2.5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair Frentz and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Dan King couldn't make it today. I'm actually Willie Miley with Darcy Solutions. I'm the regulatory director. And we are a Minnesota-based energy technology company that designs and installs groundwater-enabled geothermal heating and cooling systems. We actually installed the system at the pipe fitters union hall that the previous testifier just spoke to. We support this bill because it will help schools across Minnesota to install more energy efficient and cost-effective HVAC systems, which will save money for school districts and taxpayers and promote healthier learning environments for students and teachers. Many Minnesota schools do not have effective air conditioning and ventilation systems, with a lot of schools having no AC at all. The hot Minnesota summer weather has been starting earlier in the spring, although it's not apparent today, and extending longer into the fall, often making classrooms without AC systems very uncomfortable. In addition, we now get more widespread wildfire smoke events throughout Minnesota, which pose health concerns for people in buildings that must rely on open windows for cooling and ventilation. It is difficult for students and teachers to focus on learning when the school building is hot and very uncomfortable. Installing effective air ventilation and geothermal heating and cooling systems have many benefits for students, school districts, and the greater communities. Geothermal systems have a lower total cost of ownership than conventional HVAC systems, with project payback periods typically occurring within 5 to 10 years. Geothermal systems typically use 25 to 50% less energy for heating and 20 to 30% less energy for cooling than conventional HVAC systems. But these energy and cost gains can go significantly upward depending on the system type. And this represents a significant carbon emissions and energy cost savings for school districts. Operations and maintenance costs are lower for geothermal systems as well, typically costing 25 to 50% less than conventional HVAC. Geothermal systems have a much longer system longevity than fossil fuel systems, with geothermal wells in the type of systems that we design lasting well over 50 years and can easily last 100 years. So the energy cost savings are realized by the school district and taxpayers for a substantial time period. We are now installing Darcy geothermal systems at Bruce Vento Elementary School and Hidden River Middle School in St. Paul. The expected annual savings for operating these geothermal systems are $200,000 a year at Bruce Vento and $143,000 a year at Hidden River, excuse me. With these operational cost savings, the geothermal systems are expected to pay for themselves within 10 years. Thank you, Senator Xiong, for authoring this impactful bill for promoting energy efficient and cost-effective HVAC systems in our schools. And I urge the committee members to please advance this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. With that, we'll go to Mr. Jarvie. Mr. Jarvie, if you come forward, please. Mr. Jarvie, welcome to the committee. If you could please introduce yourself and then give your testimony, looking at about 2.5 minutes.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me talk with you for a little bit today. I really appreciate this opportunity. My name's Xiong Jarvie. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Flow Environmental Systems. We are a Minnesota-based manufacturer of heat pumps, but not just any heat pumps. These are systems that use CO2 as a refrigerant. There's a lot of advantages to that, including low global warming potential, GHG emissions, no ozone depletion potential, Class A1 non-toxic, non-flammable refrigerants, and no potential for PFAS. So with all that, we aim really strongly to bring significant cutting-edge benefits to the, in terms of environmental sustainability, health, comfort, efficiency, extremely wide operational temperatures, not just that could be for -40 Minnesota cold, all the way up to 120-degree hot that we were talking about earlier by our other testimonies. And most importantly, it makes financial sense. A single heat pump can now function as a central plant in a box that replaces traditional HVAC, boilers, heating, cooling, and domestic hot water functions, and share all that energy in between them to now increase efficiency by up to 3 times compared to traditional systems. If we think about our systems holistically and approach it in a hydronics fashion, we can truly make a difference that works with geothermal, with water source and energy recovery in spaces and air sources. Overall, this reduces complexity in design and installation and operations for facilities. This overall saves time and money. So I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm someone who cares deeply about my community and our collective future. Ultimately, we want comfortable spaces that can foster education, community, family. We can downright be comfortable and live a good life. All this work keeps us informed on what we do and how we can lower the cost and keep a little bit of money in our pockets and our budgets and pay for more teachers and educating our students. Overall, this becomes a win-win situation for everybody. I'm a firm believer in coalitions of people. For all of the people here today, all of you, and folks like our Minnesota Energy Ally that make this stuff possible. So doing all this good work does make financial sense and typically has paybacks under 5 years. But here's the but, it usually costs a little bit more upfront, and it usually shows up in an unknown, quick fashion that people need help with. And so the good work that this bill and MNCEFA does helps to bridge that gap and cover those initial costs for capital replacements that may have not been accounted for or they need to figure out over a longer period of time. This enables our schools to make the best choice for our communities, our families, and giving children and the people we care for the most in our environment an environment that they deserve. So I urge you to continue to support MNCEFA and this bill and our schools and our families and to be leaders and champions in this world with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvie. Our last listed testifier is Kazi Growth from MNCEFA. Did I say that right? Carrie. They used a Z here. They did not use a Z. I just got reprimanded by the CA.
That's okay.
Ms. Growth, very nice to see you again. Please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Thank you, Chair, friends, and members of the Energy Committee. It's nice to be back. I am Kari Growth Swan, the Executive Director of MNCEFA, and I'm here today in support of Senate File SF 1787, brought forth by Senator Xiong. MNCEFA was created in 2023 as a standalone state agency, and this bill aligns with our mandate to stimulate the development of clean energy and greenhouse gas emissions reduction products by using innovative financing and tools to leverage private and public capital and to overcome the market barriers which inhibit the financing of these projects. Many schools across the state struggle with outdated HVAC systems, leading to poor indoor air quality and rising energy costs. Second to personnel, electricity is the second highest line item in school district budgets. Geothermal technology would reduce these energy costs and allow districts to keep the funds for higher operational priorities. These critical upgrades are a significant barrier for many school districts. This is where MNCEFA can play a vital role. MNCEFA has the ability to coordinate and leverage private and public financing, crowd in philanthropic grants, use tax incentives, and other instruments to help schools access low interest rate loans. Investing in HVAC and geothermal heating cooling systems improves indoor air quality and creates healthier learning environments. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions. It offers reliable service and stable rates. It provides sustainable heating and cooling systems. It eliminates natural gas. And these systems would alleviate the financial pressure on local taxpayers who may be facing a school district referendum in their district to pay for this technology. Like Willie mentioned, the St. Paul School District is a leader and early adapter in geothermal. The Johnson High School has a new operating system. Last year was its first full year with air conditioning. But despite adding a new layer of comfort, their energy costs were actually lower. This is because it's using geothermal and energy from the ground to heat and cool the building. It has become so clear that geothermal is an effective and more efficient way to provide stable comfort in school buildings that they are currently installing it in 2 more buildings in their district. As mentioned before, Bruce Vento and Hidden River School in the Matt Groveland area. These projects are eligible for direct pay tax credits, which means it allows the schools to get the same tax benefit as taxable enterprises. MNCEFA will offer a bridge loan to these projects, which will be paid back by this tax credit in the form of energy savings. This comes back 12 to 24 months after the project is completed, and it comes back in the form of cash, a check. This essentially acts as a revolving loan. After initial funds are loaned and the tax credits come back and replenish those funds, we will then go on to the next set of funding geothermal projects. If passed, MNCEFA would build upon our work we have done with Solar for Schools. This would include a detailed RFI to determine interest and financial cost. As a state CEFI, we could potentially work with the DOE loan program to advance this initiative, as we have done with Solar for Schools. Solar for Schools generated very high demand, and MNCEFA does not have the capacity on our balance sheet to fund all of these projects. Solar for Schools is a $150 million project, and we are in the phase 2 with the LPO. I expect the interest for geothermal schools would exceed the estimated $20 million allotment. Working with the LPO would allow us to put up 20% of the cost and seek financing support for the other 80%. We will receive an attractive interest rate because Minnesota has a AAA rating. We have developed strong relationships with the LPO staff, have weekly meetings, and have strong experience in creating financial models to support this work. This bill is an investment in the future of our students and our communities, and I urge you to support number 1787. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. That's all our listed testifiers. Anyone from the public who did not get on the list who wants to testify before we go to member questions, starting by Senator Matthews? Seeing none, well, let's go to Senator Matthews and member questions, then we'll come back to Senator Xiong for any closing remarks. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Xiong and Ms. Groth, this question's probably directed at one of you. We just had your overview at our last hearing a couple days ago. Prior to that hearing, I'd asked my staff to check into whether there was going to be any new funding requests by the Green Bank. Was told that there weren't any that we were aware of. We're 2 days later here and we get this bill that's purporting to do just that. The overview pointed out to us that you got over about $105 million in state funding, 25 to 50 million in federal funding, 3 projects currently underway utilizing, I don't remember the number, but I remember it was a fairly small percentage. why can't the Green Bank just start this work today? I'm not going to talk about the veracity of the projects and all of that. I get that someone's got to do that for different schools, different communities and all of that, but with all the money that's already gone out, why are we already here asking for more?
Thank you, Senator Matthews. Why don't I see if Senator Xiong wants to field that? Senator Xiong.
Thank you, Chair. We think that the concept of the project is something that we wanted to make a pitch for to see if we can get into some RDA funding for the MCFA portion for it. I think they have a track record, have a plan and proposal that I think that would be work to create this revolving portion of it. And I think Ms. Groth can add on to answer what Senator Matthews mentioned about the funding for any additional requests for MNCFA.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. Ms. Groth Swan.
Thank you, Chair, friends. Thank you, Senator Matthews. We signed on to support this bill because, like our Solar for Schools program, we know that funding geothermal will require hundreds of millions of dollars statewide. It was brought to our attention earlier by Senator Xiong and Nicole, and I agreed to testify on Monday after the formal first Senate hearing. I did not speak about this because it is a work in progress.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, there's 20 million in new funding here. You're talking about needing a lot more money than that. We heard, I don't know that it really answers my question of why we're adding more money to the Green Bank after the significant investment from 2 years ago. So that's the only part that I'm going to just highlight here, Mr. Chair. We're going to keep working through the process. We're going to get a general fund picture tomorrow, like I mentioned, and we've got to have some pretty strong priority discussions here for our financial situation in the near future.
Thanks, Senator Matthews. I believe we have Senator Rarick on the list. Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I want to dig into this a little bit more to help understand why this is going to save schools more money than the traditional way of going about it. I see in the bill we're talking about that this is not a grant program. This is a program to provide low interest financing. So the school is ultimately paying for this anyway, but I see no definition in here that this low interest financing is going to be any better rate than what they could get going out through their own type of a bond process. So can you help me understand why, one, is there going to be any kind of a definition around what low interest financing means, that it's going to be lower than something else that's out there, and if there's any other way that you're saying you're making this more affordable for the school districts?
Thanks, Senator Rarick. Let's try Director Groth Swan. How can we call these lower interest loans?
Thank you, Senator Friends. Thank you, Senator Rarick. We, as a state green bank, loan out typically, we've done 3 loans at $11 million so far. We tie those to the 10-year T-bill. They have gone out at 4.3 to 4.6%. These are direct pay tax credits, so they are a very cheap way to get a discounted return on the investment for the schools. And given the durability and the length of service that geothermal wells offer, there's substantial tax savings and energy cost savings to the school districts on an annual basis, therefore reducing their energy costs on an annual basis. I know that the St. Paul schools, one of them had $200,000 in expense savings their first year, and another one had $180,000 in their first year. So it is a very good investment in our school districts. I would punctuate the fact that while we are a green bank that has, as Senator Matthews mentioned, on any day depending upon funding freezes between $100 and $150 million, our pipeline, when we put out an RFI, is $5 billion. And we can't do that without the loan program office and without crowding in and leveraging other dollars. Infrastructure is expensive, and our school districts support, kids 4 to 18 years old. And if we're wanting to have a durable workforce in the future, I think creating healthy learning environments is a good priority.
Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think any of us have been questioning the idea that new technologies are better for our schools and will lower their prices. I'm trying to understand why a $20 million investment is actually going to save our schools money than if they just went through and did this themselves through these programs. Why do we need to use you as a middle person and invest $20 million of state money into something? How are you actually helping them save money on these projects than if they went through it and got these credits for themselves and went through a typical financing process? Where is the savings for the school? How much will that be under this program?
Thanks, Senator Rarick. This committee's always been cost conscious. I see Senator Xiong raising his hand. I think the comparison of sort of commercial financing to the lower rate probably answers part of it, but I think we're asking what's the best way to explain this to the public. Do you want to go first, Senator Xiong?
Yeah, I
Senator
think thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Rarick, for that question. I think part of it was as presented on Monday. I think what we're trying to also leverage is also private funding. I think when you go through the normal process that you mentioned, I think there are certain hurdles. I'm not expert on school funding, but as we've seen earlier on the presentation on Monday, through the state, we had allocated from this committee $25 million, and now it's a $105 million fund. And so I think that is part of the hope, but we certainly can have further discussion on that with you.
Thank you, Senator. Director Gross-Swan, are we good? We're going to go back to Senator Rarick unless you want another bite at that apple.
I'll take another bite at the apple. Thank you, Senator, Chairman Friends, and Senator Rarick. The taking advantage of the tax credits by going through MNCEFA, we are allowed to do what's called patient capital. We typically don't start them accruing interest until after the construction has commenced. Our terms are what is known as patient capital. They tend to be lower rates than a commercial rate, certainly. They tend to have longer and more flexible terms. And we also leverage the tax credit, which saves them and reduces their costs, and also allows us then to do it again and again and again to replicate it to schools, from one district to another. If they do it on their own, we're not getting back the tax credit and able to replicate it statewide. It's good for one school district, but the revolving loan allows us to do it again and again and again.
Thank you, Director. Sorry, Senator Rarick was involved in a high-level discussion with Senator Matthews here. Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No more questions on it. I guess I'm just really interested. I'm going to do a little bit of digging myself to see what I think the long-term cost of the project for an individual school doing this on their own is compared to doing it this way, and see if there's actually significant cost savings for the school to do it this way. I'm not quite seeing it. As we talked about, there's private investment, but the private investment isn't going to the school as a grant. It's just going to help kind of prop up this green bank. So I'm going to do a little bit of digging to make sure there's actually significant cost savings for the schools to go through this route if we're going to be tying up a bunch of state money into this. I get it. You're saying it's a revolving loan, but I just think there's a lot of schools that are, this is what I do every summer, is work in a school, putting on the control systems for these HVAC systems going into schools. A lot. They're doing it, they're finding out a way, and I'm assuming there's all kinds of these programs that they can get and manage. They don't need you to get all of these credits. They can get them themselves and put it towards their own financing. So I think there's a lot more digging to make sure this is what it's being sold as.
Thank you, Senator Rarick, for that. Seeing no other members request to speak, we're going to go to Senator Xiong. Just my own 2 cents. I think those schools you're working with found a way to get it done. I think the Green Bank sometimes offers schools a lower cost way to get it done, but it isn't available for everybody. It's competitive, and that's fine. And as to whether they're getting $20 million, that is a matter for this committee to discuss at a hearing someday soon. Senator Xiong, to the bill before we lay it over.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, for the discussion. Hopefully, we can make this a competitive candidate for some of the funding through this committee. Just want to mention that. Lastly, we want this to state that we are in conversations with the sheet metal workers to ensure we're incorporating their HVAC assessment that was passed in 2023 and not duplicating efforts that are out there. Thank you.
Senator Rarick, we should also check in with some of the schools that you worked with this summer and just ask them to compare. We had Ed Min here. I'm satisfied it's in the school's interest when they can get a Green Bank loan, how frequently that is and under what terms we could discuss and maybe come back with that. Members, we're going to lay over Senate File 1787. Thank you, Senator Xiong, and the testifiers. That is the end of today's agenda. Folks, we are adjourned.